Got a pair of Stealth 23s here, and had these curing barge cement after cleaning them up, which takes a while. And now I'm gonna, they're like dry to the touch right now. That won't last for long. I'm actually gonna do the heel first. I think it'll go a little easier. Heat this up a bit and then get it to stick. That just needs to get a little hotter. It's always tricky finding the balance of how much heat to apply. You just want it to get really tacky, but you don't want it to get so hot that that'll deform the rubber. You want to get kind of sloppy and not stick to the edges. Yeah, so it's not even tacky yet. Window to view these is going to be a little tight, so if I go off camera, that's why. Just kind of threw my phone up here. Still not getting really hot. My heat gun claims it's at 400, but I don't think it quite reads what it says it does. These ideally should be about 300 degrees, and I can put that to my hand. Like right on my hand there, and I can tolerate it. So it's probably not much hotter than the hairdryer, which is not enough heat. Chances are the gauge is just a little mistaken, but it's kind of a lot mistaken, like probably a couple hundred degrees. I have it set at like, according to the arrow, about 500 or a little over. Still not even tacky. The other thing is I may have to lay down a second layer of barge cement, because if this won't get tacky, it's possible that the rubber kind of absorbs some of it, which I've not really experienced that before, but it is possible just from being dry. It's starting to look a little bit wet. Didn't have that appearance before, so I'm going to switch to the feeding the heel, especially the edges. Funny to see those stock like numbers that they slapped on the pylon. Some kind of a production thing, I guess. Hit the sole, the outsole one more time before I stick them together. It should do the trick. Now you pray. Let's see here. Start on the end. sticky. Sticking very well. Look at this. Yeah, I keep losing my overhead light. Step off camera to get that on, but yeah, that did the trick. It's a little hotter in this thin section because it's thin, so I can feel the coming off a bit more. With this stuff, man, once it is sticking, it is. It's kind of perfect like this, like where it's just the right amount of heat and it's not like filleting back or like the ends are kind of popping up or wanting to splay out. It is so tacky. I mean, super glue doesn't dry this fast, like not even close. Even Gorilla Glue, like it just. The speed of Super Stick is no joke. That looks like a really good overall adhesion. Heat portion and then see if I can capture reglue in the toe. I only heated up the very tip, like down to the main first big circle, so that I can get this aligned before I tackle the rest. Just enough. Get a hand in there. That circle kind of pressed in. I'm going to push up pretty hard to get that seam sealed. Sometimes I ice those, throw an ice pack on it almost immediately after I press it in, just let it ice down to stay. It's about a 1/2 millimeter gap there. It's super tiny. I can live with that. Closes up really good here. But yeah, I just wanted to make 100% sure I was starting up the alignment correct before slapping down the rest. I'll just heat up the edges here. Just a couple seconds of heat, especially since it's already kind of seen some. See how this isn't sticking really? Just starting to stick a little bit. That little corner right there is definitely something you gotta get just right. I'm gonna hit the sole, the rubber cap sole more than the actual outsole traction pod with heat. I'm not gonna be able to catch that light. Video cut off. I'm just doing a little ending here. Got the other side already down. Can't really show that right this second, but This is just about to get slapped on. Hopefully it's enough heat. Sink this in. Get that edge. Nice seam, as long as it stays put. Very clean so far. This part doesn't quite want to go in as it should. Kick out over the lip. I won't be able to do much about it. Just trying to get this back in here. Lay down, expanded just a hair. Little fingernail trick is getting it on there. I actually put glue all around that edge. It is kind of a soft, it's not a hard line on this. I can understand why it's not one to like sink in deep like it does here, where it's like a really solid groove or a fence line almost. Still pretty warm. It is sticking really well. There we go. Got that to fold down. That's much cleaner. It's all stuck pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get an ice pack. This doesn't want to stay. Okay, so in a situation like this where it gets a little too hot, I just press down right where it belongs, normally with a cloth over my hand and not freeze my hand off, but will pretty quickly get it to settle down. These thin ends, this does this really bad on Jordan 14s too. It's they just want to come up because the rubber's so thin, it gets hot so quick. And if you overheat it just a hair, even though the glue is really tacky, it just wants to peel. Make sure it's good on this side too. This side didn't get as hot, so I'm not having that issue. Staying nice and bonded. That little corner though, man, that little corner is a pain. Let me see if I can get this to settle down just a little bit. That's kind of where it's going to be. Maybe it did stick up ever so slightly before. It is a thicker piece of rubber, like back here it's really thin and it still sticks up a little bit. Yeah, the ice did the trick. Definitely calmed it right down. And the only thing where it's tricky to use ice if you do it a little too soon is you got to get it bonded enough to where that top line is at least holding, because obviously you can't put the same amount of finger pressure through the ice pack. And it does cool it down and get it to stick really quick. So if it's just like one spot, you can press pretty good, and then just kind of swap it out with the ice pack with a similar amount of pressure. It's not gonna like jump off you at you, so you won't really lose your space. It's just gonna kind of slowly want to peel back out. Anyway, this is a nice quick little trick I learned. And you definitely need a very flexible ice pack like this. It's kind that'll take ice or heat. You can microwave these ones, I believe. They're pretty freaking durable. I've pressed really hard on these, and they, like, I put a lot of hand pressure on these, and I haven't had any of them pop. I have a couple of these. I've had to use 2 or 3 at once before, so just kind of how it goes. But I mean, it's not even icy cold. I've iced them till they frost. But this is it was enough to do the trick. So yeah, anyway, take a look at finish deal. That's my crazy workbench. I already had to reglue this whole piece here. This was all bubbled out, and I hate the way that's done. It's a sparkly paint underneath this. It's not a smoky rubber. It's got this, it's basically clear, and then it yellows. You know, you don't see the yellowing until the paint chips. So basically when you go to reglue it, you lose some of the paint in the effort to clean the old glue off and make it prepped for new paint. But you know, these are just, I'm glad for me that they're seeing that they need to take all the way. And if I work on it much more, I could start peeling the vinyl on that toe cap where the signature is, says Michael Jordan a bunch of times. For me, these are beaters. I bought them for next to nothing. They were 12.5. Got them because they were cheap and my ideal size, which is not easy to come by. So, you know, it's worth some effort, and I'm glad they were coming out as good as they are. But at the end of the day, they were never going to be perfect. It wasn't like I bought them dead stock and yada yada. So anyway, they'll do the trick, and I'm happy with the way this turned out overall. I think it's a pretty clean seam about 95% of the way. Not going to complain about the end result here. You know, on the outside where it's seen the most. Tiny little bobble there. And so I can barely get my fingernail in there. It's like a 1/4 of a millimeter. Toe is nice and gosh, I'm gonna stay focused. Sorry. Anyway, it's done now. Fortunately, I only had to do the right shoe. The left is totally solid. No explainable reason for that. Just some part of the factory drinking too much on the right shoe day and not as much on the left day. I don't know. But the toe caps are the same, but the outsoles, this one they literally just almost fell off. I mean, it was unreal. I thought I was done with the glue job, and then sure enough, I had the soles and just come off. Anyway, they're done now. Finally wearable. Kind of nice to get them back in action soon, even if they are just beaters. They're back up and running. I use ice on this line here, but got that corner in. Hopefully it holds. Feels pretty solid. I might honestly kind of trim that down. It just sticks out a tiny bit, and there's nothing for it to sink into. But heel went down really easy and clean. Sunk right into place. This thing won't focus.